Hope everybody's excited for today's class. This one came recommended or requested rather by Haley, and I'm super excited to do this for her and for you guys in general. This is a sort of an important, we come across books all the time in our estates, and this is definitely a way to help you bring a little bit more value to those book lots. If you take a little bit of time just to look through and see if maybe you have a first edition. So, dates and publishing houses. When we look at books, it can sometimes be difficult to find value with a cursory glance. If we look more closely at the details of the book, we can not only learn more about the book itself, but when and where it was published. Knowing when a book is published is key in determining whether a book is a valuable first edition or a less valuable, more common edition. The where of book publishing is important as well, as some books will be published under one publishing house and later secondary and tertiary printings can be carried out by other publishing houses. Copyright dates. The first Congress implemented the copyright provision of the U.S. Constitution in 1790. The Copyright Act of 1790, an act for the encouragement of learning by securing the copies of maps, charts, and books to the authors and proprietors of such copies, was modeled on the Statute of Anne. It granted American authors the right to print, reprint, or publish their work for a period of 14 years and to renew for another 14. The law was meant to provide an incentive to authors, artists, and scientists to create original works by providing creators with a monopoly. At the same time, the monopoly was limited in order to stimulate creativity and the advancement of science and the useful arts through the wide public access to works in the public domain. Major revisions to the Act were implemented in 1831, 1870, 1909, and 1976. The 1891 International Copyright Treaty. Because the American copyright law applied to only American publications, European authors were unable to profit from the publication and sale of their works at extremely low prices during the 19th century. The so-called cheap books movement spread rapidly by small upstart publishers after the Civil War, threatened by the courtesy principle of gentlemanly price fixing adhered to by the large established publishers such as Henry Holt. By the 1880s, cheap books flooded the American market. By 1890, authors, publishers, printers unions joined together to support an international copyright bill. So, where to find your copyright date? When looking for a copyright date in a book, look on what's called the copyright page, aptly named. The copyright page typically also has the title of the book, the author's name, the publishing company. This is usually within the first 2 to 3 pages of the book. When you're on the copyright page, look for the words first edition. This will fluctuate depending on the publishing house, but most publishers will print this on the copyright page. However, just because your book says first edition does not automatically mean it's a valuable first edition.
Why is that?
Because there can be other printings. There's a first printing, second printing, which we will go into. First edition means different things to collectors and to publishers. To collectors, it refers to the very first version of the physical book to be printed. For publishers, the first edition may just mean the first version of the text without significant revisions. Many publishers will print the hardcover edition of a book and call that the first edition, then print the same text in paperback and call that a first edition as well. Unless the author or publishers make changes to the text, add something like an appendix or an author's note, or revises the text, there is only one edition from format to format. So your print run number is also going to be very important. Print runs are a way for collectors to identify which first edition is truly the earliest version of the book to exist in the world. Print runs are a set number of copies of the book printed at one time. You can have a large print run or a small print run. It's completely up to the publisher, and generally speaking, the size of a print run isn't shared with the public. But the print run number is easily found on the copyright page. It's a sequence of numbers, usually 1 through 10, and printed in descending or alternating order. The lowest number found on the page is the print run number. So first edition, first printings. Speaking generally, first editions will hold the most value if they are first edition, first printings. Depending on who has published the book and what formats it's been published in, you'll be looking for hardcover books mostly. But don't assume all hardcover books are first printings. You'll want to take a look at the copyright page found at the front of most books and look for the edition number, date, and print run number. Every publisher organizes this information differently, and some make it a little confusing, so you have to prepare to do a little detective work. And here's some examples. So this book right here tells you that we've got copyright 1941, so we can look up and see if this book was first published in 1941. We've also got that it literally says first edition, and then we've got the print run numbers here, 11 through 1, the lowest number meaning that this is the first printing. If this said 11 through 2, that would be a second printing. Okay, so here's another example. This one is 1990. First edition tells us February of 1990. And then we've got the print run number here. The lowest, well, technically the lowest is 0, but that's 10 in this case, so 1. So we know that this is a first printing, first edition of the book, The Eye of the World. So Jolene's asking how this series of numbers at the bottom, how that indicates our print run sequence. And what you're looking for is the lowest number there. The lowest number, 1, is the print run. So this was the very first time this book was printed. The next example we'll see shows us a different way that they've laid it out. The numbers are all jumbled around, but we still can see the lowest number here is 1.